And we are live. So, welcome to episode 215 of An American Werewolf in New Jersey. I am the American Werewolf. In the house tonight, we've got Chef Boyar Bill. He's missing his white hat, but you know that's all right. He's here just the same.
But I will be cooking.
Yeah. And we've got Eric from Hey Internet. Eric here. Thank you for stopping in. Yeah, man. And our returning guest joining us all the way on the other side of the ocean, we've got Morgan Scorpion.
Hello,
who's
everyone.
Here to join us. Yes, it's good to see you again. I don't think we've seen you since Batman Returns, which was a good chat. We enjoyed that conversation very much. I was telling
Didn't we
Bill
do 30 coins?
That was before that. No, 30 coins was way before that. And I look forward to getting another season of 30 coins in with you once you get your Blu-ray. So that will be good. So last week we were supposed to, the four of us were supposed to have sat down to discuss the movie we're going to discuss today, right now. But unfortunately, I just got violently ill. I had a 30-hour power outage, and the temperature in my apartment dropped down to like 42 degrees, which is about 4 degrees in your neck of the woods, Julia, I think. And then all of a sudden, in the middle of that, in the power outage, I just got violently sick. And I remember saying, we're still going to do it. The power came back on the next morning. And I was trying to power through, and I'm like, this isn't going to work.
No.
This isn't going to work. So I was appreciative of the fact that you guys were willing to kick the can and come back here again today.
Sure, of course.
So we are here in the second week of the show's winter platform, Cold and Scary as Fuck, which is the platform where we discuss horror films that take place in a frigid setting. And Eric and I kicked it off 2 weeks ago with the Netflix original Hold the Dark, which we both enjoyed very much. Another underrated horror film of sorts, horror noir kind of thing. But here we are today discussing a film that goes back a little over 25 years that I actually had the privilege to see in the theater. I'm talking about 1999's Ravenous. So if you guys are ready to go, shall we get it going?
Do it.
Boogity.
And he's gone.
All right, good night, everybody.
Thank you very much. Go fuck yourselves. Good night. Yes. No, if I even tell you what just happened, you wouldn't even believe it. Just the antics of the dog. So, I had the chance to see this 25 years ago in the theater, not knowing anything about it. And I loved it. I was like, what the hell is this? There aren't many movies that actually talk directly about cannibalism. This is one of them. It's kind of a black comedy. At the same time, you've got some really solid performances, a really solid cast. I own a copy. Now I owned it on VHS, and then I owned it on DVD, and now I own it on Blu-ray. I just had a chance to watch it in preparation for the show. But before we start to delve in it too deeply, let's go around. Let's start with Julia. What were your initial, what's your general opinion of 1999's Ravenous?
Well, the first thing is I'm just gobsmacked that it's that old.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel that old. I watched it last week in preparation for the show that didn't happen. And I'd seen it 2-3 times before. I was completely blown away by it. I was blown away by the quality of the acting because it's head and shoulders above what we normally expect to see in a horror movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thrilled to bits when I realized it was a Wendigo movie because I thought, at last we're getting the Wendigo done right. With
Yes.
respect to Algernon Blackwood, he was a good story, but wasn't the Wendigo. And of course, now there's Wendigo stories all over the internet, all over YouTube. It's become a trope now. But it was fairly rare back then, and you could actually feel for the plight that having tasted human flesh, they've got to carry on eating it, and that they're never satisfied and always hungry. And as a woman who likes her food, I can sort of really understand how nightmarish that would be.
What did you have for dinner, Julia?
Stew.
You'll be horrified. I had bread, butter, and mayonnaise. There you go.
Those are edible. Nothing horrifying there.
You should have just lied, Julia.
Well, so is tuna fish and chocolate, but I'm not going to mix those together.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Anyway.
All right. So, did you have anything else you wanted to add about the film?
There's 101 things I'd like to add about the film, but a lot of them escaped me just now. But apparently it's a metaphor for American manifest destiny.
That's part of it, yeah.
I only just got this the last time I saw it. I didn't pick up on it the first couple of times. Because
Robert.
Yeah.
I was just feeling for the plight of the hero who initially tastes human flesh unwillingly with no idea what he's doing. So he doesn't really understand the forces that are driving him until he meets up with the Carlisle Sergeant Ives. Was it Captain Ives? I'm sorry, I've forgotten the guy's rank. I did have some notes, but they're not actually with me right now. But until he meets Ives, he has no idea what's driving him, why he has these aversions. There's one point in the movie where one of his fellows is wounded, and he goes straight to him and leans over him. And the first two times I saw it, I thought he's going to help. And the third time I saw it, if it was the third time, I thought, oh, maybe he's going to eat. Maybe he's going to eat. Anyway.
All right. Well, that works for now. Chef Boyard Bill, you haven't been on in a while. What do you got for us?
Oh, okay. I definitely remember watching this back in late 2000 or 2001. It was like a blockbuster night. And I probably knew only Robert Carlyle and Jeffrey from Ferris Bueller.
Yeah.
I remember watching it, and it was a movie. And it just sort of came and went. This time, there's a lot of good in it that I saw, and there's also some really bad stuff in it I saw. But part of the reason that I didn't love it this time was because of Guy Pearce. I hate Guy Pearce. I never like him in anything. And he did not put in a performance that was equal to everyone else surrounding him, because it's a heck of a cast. And they all did bang up work. Well, what I did notice, like I'll give you an example. The good stuff, I really like it in that it reminded me of all the great spaghetti westerns that I love. Even though it was made in Czechoslovakia, it still has that feel and that look. And I was very into watching it again. And the score is done by the guy who does the Gorillas. And I didn't know that back then, but this time the score really stood out. So those are two really strong things. The weakness was, and I know part of it has to do with the production hell that the movie went through and being made. I mean, they're ditching directors. It almost didn't get made. They ran out of money, the whole 9 yards. So I know it must have been a struggle to put this movie together. But it just had such weak editing and laughable pacing that it took me right out of the movie, especially watching Carlisle, he's such a master. Even back then, he's such a master actor. He put on a clinic in this movie, and I wanted to be into it. And then it would just be ruined by a bunch of Guy Pearce, number one, and number two, just edits that I'm going, why are you doing that? Why? So it was good and bad, and I didn't notice this the first time I watched it, but it rips off Dances with Wolves so much. It just takes from Dances with Wolves. It feels like a horror version of Dances with Wolves.
Okay. Eric, what do you got?
This was a first-time watch for me.
That's right. Yeah.
I knew you had done this previously, but I'd listened to the episode and I remembered it was about cannibals, because this was one of your first early episodes. This was
episode 5. This was 210 episodes ago. It was one of the first episodes we had done. It was one of the first things I wanted to cover. And it was just me and Ryan, and I felt that, I'm sorry to cut you off. I'm just saying, I thought it was one of those things that deserved a larger panel, that deserved to be talked about by a larger group. And so I hadn't seen it since that time with Ryan. So it's been about 3 years. So go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's fine. And if you say it was over 200 episodes ago, I have a hard time remembering 10 episodes ago. You know what I mean? And I'm here a lot. But all I knew is it was like Frontier Times, cannibals, and David Arquette. And that was my worry, was David Arquette, because he always plays a fucking moron.
Yeah.
I don't know how I got the Blu-ray. I got it from Scream Factory. It was a blind buy. It might have just been on sale, for all I know. And I'm glad you picked this, because it gave me an excuse to watch it. And when I watched it, I was really drawn in by the cast because of how diverse it is. Because you have Guy Pearce, who I've seen him in a few things. The only thing I can remember off the top of my head, of course, is Iron Man 3 of all things. Robert Carlyle, love him in 28 Weeks Later as the lead in that. Jeffrey Jones, when he's not being goofy like in a Tim Burton film, he can really act. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
My wife has been in love with Neil McDonough since she first saw him in Walking Tall. You know what I mean? Sure. And I've been a fan of him too. Even when he's in bad movies, he's always good.
Yeah, he is.
And I was happy that David Arquette wasn't a moron. You know what I mean? In this film. So
I was a moron.
Just overly medicated.
Well, he's just a stoner.
I'll take it. You know what I mean? I'll take it. It's not Scream or Ready to Rumble or any other goofball stupid shit he's in. So it had a great cast, great chemistry. I love the sets. It's very creepy, not just with the cannibalism theme, but just, who can Guy Pearce trust? And I liked how halfway through we get this thing. Is he losing his mind? With Robert Carlyle, or is Robert Carlyle telling the truth? I thought most of the comedy kind of worked, because once, we're going to spoil it, obviously, once Jeffrey Jones comes back, we do get a lot more comedy with him. Overall, I was very, very, very pleased. I think we'll get into it. I think my dislikes are very minimal, but I definitely don't regret watching this one. It was. Yeah. I don't want to say it was a lot of fun, but it was a lot of fun, if that makes sense.
It's probably the best movie about cannibalism that I've seen. There are other movies that have cannibalism in them, and I think when we were in the group chat, we were talking about Bone Tomahawk. But Bone Tomahawk was just kind of a Western, and you find out at the end that the villains are actually cannibals. Like, it's not really, it's a rescue operation.
Yeah, it's a movie
they're there
with
to get that
cannibals
woman
in it.
back. Yeah, that show up like in the last 15 minutes of the movie. You finally get to see who the bad guys are, and they turn out to be cannibals. This, I thought it was a really good script. I think, like Bill said, and like I think maybe Eric said, it has a really great score. It's sort of sad and melodramatic, which I didn't see coming from the guy who makes fucking Gorillas. Fantastic cast. Fantastic cast. Actors. And that doesn't happen very often in horror movies. You don't really get actors. You usually get
David Arquette.
People. Yeah, you get David Arquette. You get Tom Atkins. You get, some girl who's going to scream her head off. This, that, and the other. Again, like Eric or like Julia said, I love the native mythology.
Yes, I
talking
was
about
happy
the
for that too.
Wendigo. Yeah. I really liked the character George, who just sort of explains everything to everyone. You know how this is bad. This is not good. What's happening? Like we shouldn't be going. With this guy. I like the fact that they were all just a bunch of social misfits. It was like an entire fort of outcasts. Like none of them were friends. They just all happen to be thrown in here again. Even Neil McDonough, who is playing the hard guy soldier, you would think he would be with like other soldiers off somewhere fighting a war, but he's not. For some reason that you never really find out, he's here, just hanging out in the snow.
Yeah, there's definitely something weird because they open it up with a good introduction to all the characters, and we see Neil McDonough. He's probably butt-ass naked in the creek, just yelling to the sky, and then they cut to the next character.
With the freezing weather, because what a hard ass he is.
Well, that's why he's out there, because he's a fucking nutter.
Yeah,
probably. Yeah, he probably is crazier than everybody. The regular soldiers.
Yeah.
I like Guy Pearce. I always like Guy Pearce. I never have a problem with Guy Pearce. Except when he did that Scrooge thing, and that was just awful. But that had nothing to do with Guy Pearce. That was just they perverted the fucking story. Hold on a second. We got some. Hold on a second. We got the Ginger Ninja. JK, what's happening, man? He's saying, hey, and he says Ravenous is so underappreciated. Yet nobody ever talks about this. Nobody ever. And it is a movie that is worth discussing. Is it a perfect movie?
Getting a lot of hype back in the day, though. Like it was on the end trail of the independent movie thing that was happening.
The 90s.
It got a lot of press. It got a lot of attention when it hit the theaters.
I don't know if anybody else.
I missed all of that.
Yeah, you and I mean, we didn't talk about it, I don't think. I don't know if anybody else that saw it. I had just seen this movie and I went around to tell people and everybody was just like, oh, okay, I didn't see it. All right, and so it wasn't a huge box office success. It lost money, but now it is considered a cult classic, and in a noteworthy way. The story takes place with Guy Pearce as Captain Boyd, who's I thought that this was just a great piece of writing. He's essentially promoted for cowardice. He pretends, that he's dead while all of his friends and everybody are being killed in the Mexican-American War. And yeah, like Julia says, he inadvertently like they stack him like it just the stacks of bodies on top of each other, and he ends up ingesting the blood of his fellow soldiers, which sort of revives him, and he ends up single-handedly taking out this soldier fort. So rather than admit that he was a coward who dropped dead and pretended to die in the first place, they decide to promote him. Yeah, but send him away. We're going to give you this promotion, but we don't want to see you. I just thought that was a really interesting twist, and that he never really. What I liked about his character was that he didn't advertise it, but he didn't hide it either.
Right.
When he gets out to the fort and Jeffrey Jones, asks him what's the medal for, he's like cowardice.
Yeah.
And Jeffrey, and I really like that about
Jeffrey Jones doesn't question it, which is interesting.
I think he knows they're all just a bunch of misfits. Like if you're out there for some fucked up reason. Everybody in there is just a bunch of fuck ups.
When he's at that dinner and they're trying to celebrate him because he had this great victory, all of them knew, and all of them were sort of treating him with this contempt of, we know what you are, but we're going to pretend that you're a hero, and now, get out into the wilderness and disappear.
Yeah.
Well, it made me think, Mike, when you said, they put a band of misfits, it's like they put them on that fort to forget about them type of thing. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah. They'll never see him again. He'll stay out there, and maybe some new commanding officer will come along or something like that, and he'll be revived one day. But, what's the name of the guy who's the general? Does anybody remember his actual name?
No, I just remember he's always drunk.
Yeah. No.
Austin.
Yeah, but
John Spencer.
John Spencer. That's
in a terrible, terrible wig and beard, it was horrible.
But I mean, Slauson, he tells him to his face, "You're no hero, Boyd. Just go out there, and we don't want to see you anymore," and so on and so forth. And I think Julia was right in that there are a lot of themes of, I guess, the manifest destiny that everything's just being consumed. You're taking it from the other person. We're taking this from the Mexicans. This belongs to us.
I'm going to go and try and find my notes.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to be away. I'm going to try and find them.
Yeah. Okay. So there's this entire thing that this is our destiny to consume all of this land. I think somebody was mentioning earlier the Louisiana Purchase in the movie or something like that. So there've just been these massive land grabs. And if you're not going to give them to us, we're just going to take them from you. And, we're just going to have to keep killing each other until one of us gives up, and it's not going to be us. So there's very much there's a theme of dominance in this film all throughout. Whether it's in the military sense, or when it comes right down to cannibalism, which is probably the ultimate expression of dominance. I mean, you literally eat the other person. And so it's all throughout this film. He settles in somewhat well. And then I just love, they don't waste time. And I guess if you are going to get into a complaint about the movie, it's probably the last 40 minutes, because it's about an hour and 40 minutes. The first hour is just very solid. I felt that it's extremely solid. You get to the point where Mr. Calhoun shows up at the fort, and then it just kind of takes off from there. Does anybody want to grab that one? Their first thoughts of seeing Robert Carlyle show up at the fucking fort.
That was, I mean, I kind of expected it, but I didn't. And that's where, like I said, when my little initial thoughts, I guess you would say, is Robert Carlyle, like I knew something was off with him. I knew, like, I didn't know how bad it was, but I knew he just definitely wasn't who he seemed.
Right.
And I like that because I'm sure I've seen him in more than just 28 Weeks Later. That's just the first thing that popped in my head. But this dude has like some type of a presence. Like, you're always drawn to him. And a lot of his acting, at least in the first half of this film, to me, I think relies more on his body language, his fear, his cold. You think when he's freaking out initially, when they're at the cave, that he's afraid, but then he's just kind of, going loopy, you know what I mean? And that's when he gets ready to attack.
Distraction, I think.
And he's just, like I said, I know something's definitely up. I didn't know he was the cannibal per se, but I knew he wasn't telling the whole story.
Yeah, and he's always got this presence of menace behind everything he does.
Well, just look at his eyes right there behind that coffee cup or whatever. There's something going on behind those eyes. Like, he's staring at them. So there's something off about him.
Well, I mean, what happens is, he shows up there, and I mean, he essentially steals every scene. He essentially steals every scene in the movie. But I think his best performance is this particular scene where he begins to spin this story. And it's just him. It's almost a monologue, of how, he's part of these people that are going west, and they get trapped, and, they last for about a month on, horses and oxen. And then it starts to really just fucking twist. And again, this was another thing where the strength of the score really came through. I mean, it was just interwoven in this story that he's telling. And, he comes into the cave, and they're cooking the man's legs. Yep. He's so hungry that he's like he thanks God that, there's going to be meat to eat. It's just so awful to watch, but you can't take your eyes off of it. You just can't take your eyes off him as he's spinning the story. Fantastic performance. Fantastic. It's hard to steal a scene from Jeffrey Jones, man. Jeffrey Jones is a really, really good actor.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that he was given that much here. I mean, he's definitely a supporting star here, but I mean, he stole it from everybody. And again, I think one of the underrated performances in here was the guy who played George, because George picks up immediately, the Native American guy, on what this guy is.
Mm.
When when they're in the house and he's telling the story, and George is just kind of moving around the room watching him. George understands instantly what the problem is. Fantastic.
Yeah, Jeffrey Jones reminded me of his role in Amadeus, where he was just clueless enough, just clued in enough that you trust him, but just clueless enough that you're like, this guy doesn't get what's going on. And
what role did he play in Amadeus?
Subtle way of playing it, but he's just so good. You're absolutely right.
What role did he play in Amadeus?
He's the king of Austria.
Oh, too many notes. Yes.
And Mozart are sort of vying for his attention and trying to get payment for a opera, or approval for an opera, where he's not really 100% there, but then you're going, oh, he knows more than he's letting on, and that's exactly how he played it in this one too.
I liked that he was just a guy who seemed to want to just do nothing but read his books.
Yep.
And eat walnuts.
Like that was all he really wanted.
Walnuts are kind of important, I think.
What's this?
The walnuts. Now, I might be misremembering his final scene, but in the final scene, before he asks Boyd to kill him, he smashes a walnut and eats a bit of it. It's just like, I think for him, finding out that he can't even enjoy walnuts anymore was the last straw.
Well, I thought that also, it was significant that his books were gone. Like all of the mysteries of life have been removed from him. There's just nothing but this need now to kill and eat. Yeah. And like Captain Boyd isn't a particularly admirable character. Guy Pearce, he's not. He's cowardly. He's weak. But he's the one person in there who's trying to hold on to his last thread of humanity. He's still a human being. He's a weak human being. He's a pathetic human being. You could see why people hold him in contempt, but he's still trying to be a person.
That's what really surprised me.
Let go of his mortal sense.
That's what really surprised me, was the fact that he's not some, gung-ho man's man, in this type of movie. He is a coward.
Eats the gung-ho man's man, doesn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's the theme always struck me as not being particularly about manifest destiny or something specific in history, but more just avarice and greed and sort of materialism, rather than anything, the sins of America. Just because it was set in the 1840s doesn't necessarily mean it was an allegory for America taking over the continent. But you see Guy Pearce trying not to fall into this trap, and I saw it as being consumerism, or just this will to want everything.
The reason I wanted to get my notes was I wrote down a quote. This is a speech from Ives, in which he says, "This country is seeking to be whole, holding out its arms and consuming all it can, and we merely follow."
There are, and like I was saying earlier, I think while you stepped away, there are hierarchies at play here, and who's in charge. And I think Bill probably sums it up pretty well. It's just consumption. Everything is just being consumed and grabbed, and you take it from the other person. And Calhoun is the same way, or Ives is the same way. If he can dominate you, you could probably stick around. If he figures out that he can't dominate you, then he's just going to kill you. you know, which is kind of what's going on with the wars that are happening. Like he can't, like Neil McDonough, like he just kills him.
Mhm.
George, he just kills him. You know, he's not going to be able to dominate them. But somebody weak like Captain Boyd, yeah, probably. Jeffrey Jones, you know, is just kind of a bookworm. Yeah, sure. You know, I'm not going to have any problem with that. Major Knox, who's just a drunk, you know, I could just, you know, do whatever I. So, I mean, there's a lot of alpha, beta kind of, you know, dynamics at work here, you know.
Yeah, he's a lot more diabolical. He's a lot more diabolical than it seems at first. Like it's almost like a Satan tempting the weakest among them and getting rid of the ones who could resist it.
Somebody said it's like a dealer and his junkie. You know, he's just dealing out the you sure you don't want this? You sure you don't want this? You sure you sure you don't want this? You know, you really need it. You know, why don't you take this? You know, first one's free. You know, this kind of thing, and then, you know, once he's got you hooked, he's just reeling you in anytime that he wants.
Yeah, and he's got you know,
he's kind of like a low-level dealer who's addicted to his own supply. I mean, he needs to have these underlings working for him in order to guarantee a steady supply of meat.
Yeah, that was interesting with the cannibalism. It's sort of treated as like a low-key kind of vampirism.
Yeah.
You know, the way that they handle it, it's not just eating. Like the way he starts out telling the story. I liked it when he shows back up, and we're just kind of jumping back and forth, but that's fine. He shows back up as Colonel Ives, and he immediately admits to Boyd that, yeah, it's me. You know, and he starts telling, you know, I had tuberculosis. I was on my way out to the sanitarium. I was depressed. I was suicidal. You know, I was probably just going out there to die. You know, I was just going to lay in some sanitarium until I coughed myself to death. Until, you know, this Native American started telling this story. So, of course, I had to kill him to try it. You know, that's his automatic reaction. I have to kill him to see if it's true or not.
He's just so nonchalant about it. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's just like, immediately, I felt stronger. You know,
he starts out hiding behind the religion thing. You know, when they first encounter him, he's got his rosary around his hand, and he's throwing a lot of God language around. But when he comes back to the fort at the end, there's none of that. He's just completely transformed into this sly sort of, you know, Mephistopheles kind of character. Yeah. He's become a whole different person, probably the real person that he wasn't hiding.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you get to, he is Colonel Ives. He's not FW. He might have been FW Calhoun at some point, consumptive, suicidal, you know, schmo. But now I don't know exactly how he became Colonel Ives or whatever. But yeah, that's actually who he is.
What I liked about when he came back as Colonel Ives is, you know, the change in personality. He really seemed like he was enjoying what he was doing to Guy Pearce, you know what I mean? He was having fun. Well, I was just gonna say, you know, no pun intended, like, you know, a cat playing with its food before eating it.
Yep.
Yeah.
And he was just having so much fun. And again, it's a lot of it's just body language. The way he would just like look at Pierce and like snicker and sneer. You know what I mean? Like it's like, I got you, motherfucker. You know, those type of looks. You know what I mean? Yeah. Especially when they were like inspecting him for like the bullet hole, you know, in the shoulder, and he's just like, you know, he's questioning, you know, why take off your shirt type of thing, and then, you know, boom, he did it. And then he kind of gives like a little, I don't know if it's just a look or a smile, like, got you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he's just having so much fun fucking with him.
Yeah, because he's 3 steps ahead of everybody else. And the only person that's on to him is the one person that nobody listens to.
Right.
I just wish Guy Pearce did a better job of reacting to that.
How would you have had...
lets me down every time. It's so wooden and obvious. I hated his performance.
Really?
Yes.
Because to me, he looks sickly and infirm. And I agree with you. I noticed at this time about the editing and some of the things that just transition from one thing. You know, you're like, wait a minute, how did we suddenly, you know, end up out here, especially in the last 40 minutes of the movie? But to me, he played what he was supposed to play, like this, like contemptible sort of sniveling, not exactly sniveling, but weakling, who's just like got one thread left to hang on to. He's not a hero. Even at the end, I didn't really find him to be particularly heroic. I don't think you're supposed to like him, which is what makes this movie interesting to me, because there's usually, in a horror movie, there's somebody that you're rooting for. And you're sort of rooting for him, but you can't bring yourself to like him.
So good. And Guy Pearce.
You were wait, hold on, Julie. What did you just say? Yeah,
very much. She's been conspicuous by her absence until now. Martha is the solid backbone of that fort. She's the one that gets things done.
Yeah,
and I love the way how once she realized what's happening, she just walks out into the snow like,
she was hauling ass. She's looking over her shoulder.
And she's going to make it. She's going to make it.
Yeah, hold on a second. We got some comments here. The Ginger Ninja is saying, "Was there shades of the Donner Party?" Yeah, that was an influence for the story. We're thinking of another film. That was a major influence for this story. We got Verb. What's happening, man? Haven't seen you. Happy New Year to you. I don't think I've seen you this year yet, so we're only 18 days late for that, but Happy New Year just the same. Ravenous is my favorite cannibal movie. Yeah, it might be mine too. There's Raw. That's a good movie. A couple of others. So on and so forth. I hated it the first time when it came out, but when I watched it again last year, I fell in love with this one, flaws and all. Okay, fair enough. Yeah. Dinner Party Donner Party had to have played a part. Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's like the American spirit of the settlers' version of Romanian vamps. Yeah, I mean, somebody said that this gets rid of all of the vampire cliches by not being a vampire movie, and you also get rid of a lot of the cannibal cliches by leaning into the vampirism sort of thing. It sort of cleans itself up by sort of leaning in both directions.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
They're not named in the movie, but I think that probably was part of what Mr. Calhoun's story was.
Right.
It's sort of based loosely on the Donner Party.
But those
I've
five.
Got to ask, which mountains was the Donner Party again?
It was a wagon train of people trying to make it to California. They tried to cross
which mountains were they lost in?
The Sierra Nevada mountains. They got trapped in weather, and they wound up eating each other in order to survive.
Yes.
It's very infamous.
But I want to know this particular movie, Ravenous. Which mountains is this one set in? Is it the same mountains?
Yeah, I think so. They're in California. They are in California. Yeah. This is in California. This is set in California, so the West Coast, the actual coastline. But somewhere up in there, I don't know if it's the Rockies or what. I don't know too much about the mountains.
Not the okay. Yeah.
So I mean, let's talk about the cave scene, because this is where I remember watching this with someone, and we got to the cave scene, and like the tension is just constantly ratcheting. And well, first of all, we get to the tent scene where Calhoun is licking that fucking guy, and you're just like, oh man, what the fuck is that? Mm-hmm. I mean, this movie really goes for it.
Those are the little scenes of black comedy that worked. Because I loved the songwriter, I guess we would call him. I don't remember his name. The guy that was being licked. You know what I mean? He had his little fun little quips, and as they were taking Robert Carlyle out, he was just you go out there, sick man. You stay out there. He was saying the little things like that, and it kind of helped bring a little bit of levity because I knew this movie was going to be very, very fucking dark, and he was just fun to watch. Him trying to hobble along this long trek, on makeshift crutches and stuff like that. And when we got to the cave, I love that score when they're going to the cave because that really helped bring up the tension. Oh yeah. And then this is when my wife, because like I said, she's been in love with Neil McDonough forever. When he's taking charge, and he tells Guy Pearce basically, "You get in my way, I'm going to beat the shit out of you," type of thing. Yeah. He's going to be the leader. And he was just so good. I loved how he jumped down that hole, didn't give any shits. He was ready to take charge until he found the bodies, and he was doing his little math. You know what I mean? Remembering the story and stuff like that. And then that switch happened, and you go from tough guy to scared as hell. And it was really, really well done by Neil.
Yeah. Yeah, ratcheted up with the score. I remember watching this with someone once, and she was just like, "Can we not watch this anymore?" Because I think the score was getting to her.
I can see.
Like it's just and like Robert Carlyle starts hyperventilating, and
Yes.
That's such a good scene, man.
yeah, man. I
He
mean,
can hardly contain himself. That was so
Yeah.
good.
I thought he
Yeah.
was just having like a flashback episode. You know what I mean? And then to me, now that I realize it, it's like now he's like an animal in heat. Like he's getting hungry, and I was just waiting for him to start foaming at the mouth. So at first, they do a kind of a fake out with him maybe being scared, remembering everything, of air quotes what happened, until the truth comes out. And it's just a great performance of no words. You know what I mean? He's just freaking out.
But then what happens, the most unexpected thing happens. It sort of turns almost into a full comedy for the chase scenes. Like the banjo starts playing, and then, he's chasing, the one guy, our personal emissary to the Lord, this sort of thing. He's chasing him everywhere, and he ends up killing, he kills George, and he kills Neil McDonough. He stabs Jeffrey Jones. I mean, all these people just get taken off the board like instantly. And I
doesn't Neil McDonough's character die jumping off of the cliff?
He gets kicked off the cliff or thrown off the cliff. He doesn't jump.
Oh, right.
It's Guy Pearce.
Guy Pearce jumped off the cliff.
He jumps to avoid being killed. Again, not anything remotely admirable about any of his actions. I mean, he's the first one to want to run. He's he's an officer, so he's supposed to be taking charge, but he's doing the exact opposite. And the next thing you know, everybody's fucking dead but Carlisle and Guy Pearce. And so it's no wonder to me that as his last fucking effort, Neil McDonough tries to strangle fucking Guy Pearce. Bill, that must have made you really happy.
Yes.
Bastard.
Why did he do that, though?
When they're in when they fall into that underbrush.
Yes, but for the life of me, I don't know why he tried to do that.
I imagine because he hates him.
That's just one of those weird where things are.
Well, like you said,
it could be one of those
things just fucking
where
nuts too. So
he's nuts.
Didn't the jumping off the cliff remind you of a Sylvester Stallone movie where he did the same thing?
Cliffhanger.
It was Rambo.
Oh yeah, Rambo, because he's going through the trees. First Blood. Yeah. We could have used some Stallone here for this one. You needed somebody with some fucking oomph because there was nobody there. It's really ironic because it's like Gary Oldman. Carlisle is a man of very slight build. He's not a big, intimidating man or anything like that.
Yes, but he's from Glasgow, and that would make him fucking terrifying.
Yeah. I was just going to say he's not like Christopher Lee, who towered over everybody, and you just look at you and you're like, fuck, man, I'm sorry, whatever it is, my fucking fault.
But Christopher Lee really did kill people. In World War II, he really did have the what's the word? He had the backup. The menace wasn't just acting. He really was capable of doing damage. Whereas in the case of most actors, it's all front.
I think in the Return of the King, Peter Jackson was talking to him because I think Brad Dourif Wormtongue was going to stab him in the back.
Right.
And he's trying to give him direction on how to react when somebody gets stabbed in the back. And there's a famous story where he goes, "You don't need to tell me how someone reacts when they get fucking knifed in the back."
I heard the story. It's like, he was either proud of, or he was telling Jackson that he got the sound of stabbing someone wrong. One of the two. Yeah. And how would you know that? Oh, I know. That type of thing.
Yeah.
Well, I remember the story that Peter Jackson thought that Christopher Lee was all mouth and no trousers. And so when Christopher Lee started explaining that this is the way you throw a knife, Peter Jackson called his bluff, gave him a knife, pointed at something, and Christopher Lee's like, no, bang, straight into the target, thereby demonstrating. Nice. So he was a war hero as well as a cinematic hero.
I think he was part of the old OSS. Yeah. He was he was a spy. Yeah. Yeah, Jesus Christ, that must have been scary. Count Dracula is a spy.
Mhm.
Holy shit. Yeah, imagine running into him in the fucking field. All bloody and shit. So, I mean, I guess if there was one thing that I was disappointed in, it was that Martha didn't pick up on any of it. Now, maybe it was because she was distracted by the death of her brother. When everybody comes back, everybody thinks that that Boyd is either crazy or a coward, or he's abandoned everyone, so on and so forth. And so, Ives has succeeded in completely flipping the script and getting everybody to, go forward with his misdirection, that he's fucking out there. And yeah, I mean, he's just, when he comes back as Ives, he's just, I don't know, definitely an unlikable fucking villain. I mean, yeah.
But the thing is, like, he's one of those, those unlikable villains that you just can't help but like, because
No, I didn't like him.
I just, well, maybe like performance wise, because I think he was just having so much fun, and that's what I like in a villain sometimes, when they're just having fun before the final moment type of thing, and that's what I really liked about him. So maybe just like Carlisle in general, instead of just maybe the Ives character.
I was, well, yeah, that's fine. I mean, I was, other pieces start to get knocked off. David Arquette, thankfully, is gone, because you could have not had David Arquette in there and it wouldn't have affected the movie at all.
Anybody could have played that character.
Well, he did, like, the character didn't need to be in there at all. Like,
that's true.
I didn't, yeah, that would have been fine. Maybe he was just standing around the studio or something, like, hey, you want to be in this movie? And you could be in here for like 10 minutes, and that's about it.
I liked him.
That was the point in time when he was really hot. Everyone wanted.
That was his, yeah.
After Arachnophobia and after Scream, I guess the first.
Yeah,
Scream
he had the first. I think maybe the second one had come out as well, but he was a name again. You know what I mean? He wasn't doing this, random, indie film for like $10 type of thing. They knew that there was more than just Rosanna and Patricia in the Arquette family at this time.
Yeah, they had to, because they filmed in Czechoslovakia. They would have had to really been like, we want this guy to fly halfway around the world to be in our movie.
I can't figure it, but okay. I mean, at the end it turns into a big fight. Which, I'll be honest, I wasn't watching it this time around. I wasn't that crazy about the final battle. I thought you got a decent performance. Well, I thought you got a decent performance from Jeffrey Jones.
Oh yeah,
Jeffrey Jones is a surprise return.
Yeah, I didn't expect that.
Yeah, and he's a surprise return, and initially embracing the new direction that he's going in. Ultimately, and again, when I saw that all of
it, where was he all that time? How was he surviving?
Well, didn't he start eating?
He might have been the one to clean up because remember they said they went back to the cave and everything was gone.
Yeah.
It could have been him. He could have eaten George. He could have eaten George. He could have, eaten Neil McDonough. The prayer guy. All these sorts of things. So it was probably him up there. And again, he's been subordinated by Carlisle because there can only be one, dominant, one alpha. And probably they're doing all the fucking manual labor. But again, I did notice this time, that all of his books were gone. And I think that was the final straw for him. He realized that, I can't live like this. So, he asks Boyd to take him out. And, we get into the final battle. And what I did like was the bear trap.
Yes. There's a subtle setup, just seeing it, a brief glimpse of it, and then right away, okay, someone's getting caught in it. If it's a cannibal movie and then there's a bear trap, someone's getting caught in that for some reason. And I didn't expect it to happen the way it did, but I thought it was kind of a cool way to end the fight.
And I loved Robert Carlyle's final line. That was sneaky.
Yeah. Like he knew he'd been had. Yeah.
That's just so weird.
Yeah,
that
because
he would have been killed by a giant bear trap, like this oversized, ridiculous looking bear trap. As like is it his just desserts? Did he get what he deserved? A bigger domination just crashed down on him.
Well, that's the whole argument too. For a second, it leaves you in suspense because he goes, if you die before me, I am going to eat you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the question is, if I die before you, what are you going to do?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so, you know, it's sort of right up there until the end. And then he manages. I mean, I actually think that the best thing that Guy Pearce does in the movie is die. That's the most heroic
I'm sure
thing.
Bill will agree.
Well, no, I mean, because Martha explains to him that the only way that you can defeat the Wendigo, is to sacrifice yourself. Like you can't take anymore. You have to give. You know, if you want to beat this thing, you have to be willing to die. That's it. And that's actually what he manages to do. And it's actually within very weird parameters, like the best way that he looks physically throughout the whole movie is at the end when he dies. Okay. You know, there's almost like a small look of satisfaction or contentment as Martha's looking in on him as he's dying, because Carlisle dies first. And so it's just a matter, is he going to be able to hold out? And he does. And yeah, you know. Anything else? I'm glad that Martha did get away.
I did like her, yeah. As little as she was, I did like her. Like I think there's like again another comedic scene. They were saying, what was it? I don't know. It was the scene where she was leaving the fort, and somebody was basically kind of nudging her to the fact that it had to have been her, and she says something like, "Well, I wonder who's got to go do that." And you know, she kind of rolls her eyes, and then you see her with the backpack getting ready to leave, type of thing, looking over her shoulder. So yeah, she kind of had a fun, smart attitude.
He was told that they needed a volunteer, and she just kind of like put her hand up.
Yeah. Do we have any volunteers for this? And yeah, she's the only one in there. So, all right. Is there anything in this film that we have not discussed that you would like to address? Any points?
I was you guys say you notice the editing like the second time you watched it. Maybe I'll notice it more when I do, because I will be watching this again because I did enjoy it that much. I was surprised at how well, at least this first view, how well the pacing was, because with it being nearly 2 hours, for me, it didn't feel like that from beginning to end.
It's not slow. It's not a slow movie.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's enough happening throughout the whole thing.
Yeah.
It wasn't that it hurt the pacing of the movie. It just annoyed me the way that they were telling the story. And the things that they were saying with the scenes, just sort of, some scenes didn't belong there, or it could have been told better, but it might have been just Guy Pearce's acting too, which was annoying me as well.
Like what?
It's hard to say because it's been so long since I've seen it now. I don't really have an example. It just seemed like, you know, why are they standing around waiting for things to happen? It didn't seem to be set up in a way where, oh, this guy's eating people, let me do something about it. It's just sort of like, all right, I'm going to stand around here, and then I'll get around to worrying about it later. It just seemed like it wasn't edited properly, or they didn't have enough filmed for them to piece it together in the way that it should have been.
All right.
Me. But you know, it's an indie film from Europe. It's not going to flow the way that I want it to. Okay.
All right. Fair enough. Well then, bearing that in mind, let's get to the part in the stream where we rate the film. This channel has a rating system that goes from 0 to 5, up by halves. So 0 0.5, 1.5, all the way to 5. So 0, for example, would be I'd rather have my favorite Instagram model projectile vomit all over me than watch this fucking movie again. All the way to 5, which is this is the destination. This is cinema. This is why I watch movies in the first place. Let's go with ladies first. Julia, what would you give 1999's Ravenous? And it should be mentioned that this was a female director, so that's actually kind of interesting.
Antonia Bird,
definitely seems like a more
one for the ladies.
Antonia Bird, yeah,
I like to see it.
Yeah, and that's interesting because with so many men directing so many guys in an almost exclusively male, except for Martha, casting, you wouldn't think, but I think she.
Robert Carlyle actually brought her in.
They were business partners.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Good for him.
The first director dropped out.
Who was the first director?
Julia,
Sorry. Okay, well, I'm giving it a 5 because I absolutely loved it. I loved the soundtrack. The music really did it for me. The theme, I'm not sure what musical instrument that is, but I like that. I loved the scenery. That was something I should have mentioned. That a horror movie set in absolutely beautiful scenery really does it for me. So this is time for me to mention The Droving, which is a horror movie set in beautiful scenery. But yes, it's a 5 for me because this is cinema. This is what I live for.
Okay, all right. We should have talked about the cinematography, and maybe as we proceed with the next, because it was the same with Hold the Dark. The background was they were in Alaska, and it was just stunning.
Yes,
the scale that they were using to show how small people were in comparison to nature. So on and so forth. All right, Chef Boyar Bill, what do you got for us for Ravenous?
I'm going to give it 2.5. Definitely not horrible. Watchable. You're right. The cinematography was fantastic. Like I said, it reminded me of the best spaghetti westerns. The story's a great idea. Carlisle and Jeffrey Jones both put on clinics as far as performance-wise. I watched it and didn't feel like I was wasting my time. But at the same time, I was watching it and going, I don't like this. So it sort of took me out of it. What can I say? 2.5.
All right. It's a free country, mostly. Eric, what do you got for us with Ravenous?
For a first-time watch, man, I'm going to give it a 4.5.
Okay.
The reason why is, again, I didn't notice the choppy editing, but this cast I think is great. Like I said, David Arquette, he was the one thing that I'm like I was worried about because I do not like the man. He was fine, but Guy Pearce was fine. Robert Carlyle was amazing in this movie. Jeffrey Jones, remember this is Beetlejuice and Ferris Bueller. But if you look at the other stuff like Devil's Advocate and even like his little cameo in Sleepy Hollow, the man can act if given the right script and chance. Right. And he was really good in this. Like, I love George. Neil McDonough is great. So great cast, great cinematography, great pacing. Uncomfortable at times, you know what I mean? Just with the subject matter for me personally. The only thing I'm honestly gonna knock is when the score is really good, it is great. But when they brought in those banjos, it was just like, it stuck out for like a sore thumb for me. It didn't fit for me. When you're having I know the tone of this film. We're already getting ready to find out what happened to this group of people that were supposedly eaten. And then they have this chase scene with the, fucking banjos. And I was thinking of Dukes of Hazzard and that type of shit. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
That reminded me. The banjos reminded me of a Burt Reynolds movie,
Smokey and the
Deliverance.
No, the one where they're being chased by hillbillies.
Yeah, that's Deliverance
right now. Yeah.
Deliverance.
Yeah. So I mean, that could also just be me being picky. I'm definitely taking off half a point. Whoop-de fucking do for some banjos. But other than that, I really, really enjoyed it. 4.5.
Okay. All right. I'm stuck somewhere between 4 and 4.5. I noticed some editing problems. It was just choppy editing, like the transition from one scene to the next. And I don't know if that's just an issue of the Shout Factory production, because I haven't seen it in so long as to remember or to see it, with another version of it from the DVD days or the VHS days. I don't remember. And again, I wasn't really crazy about watching Carlisle and Guy Pearce have this fight at the end. I'm probably going to go with a 4. I'm going to go with a 4. It's definitely upper level entertainment. And some of the better horror that's been released, I'd say probably in the past 3 decades. It's good stuff. The way that the issue of cannibalism is treated is original. And, it's the first of its kind. I like the native mythologies. Again, you had almost an ensemble kind of cast working there. Great score. The fight at the end, and I won't even get into the editing, but like towards the end, after he kills Jeffrey Jones, I sort of fast forwarded up until the point where they fell into the trap because it was unnecessary. Like if they had just had a quick fight and boom, you could have cut 5 minutes out of it instead of having them wander around the whole campsite. And I'm like, what are you guys doing? Like why? You could have. Somebody stab somebody. Somebody do something.
Doesn't belong.
One thing I do want to say that I did like. I didn't mean to jump on you, but you said it handles cannibalism that you've never seen. This is the only movie, to my knowledge, I haven't seen a lot of cannibal films where if you eat the meat, your body will regenerate. You'll be able to heal from any type of wounds. And I've never seen that in a cannibal movie before, so I thought that was kind of a cool little twist.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Go ahead, Julia.
I'd like to mention something that I should have mentioned earlier. When George is showing the scrolls of the Wendigo and telling you how eating the Wendigo eats the flesh and becomes stronger, and then it goes to a scroll of Jesus Christ. I'm suddenly reminded of the communion, the Catholic communion, where they believe that the host turns into the flesh of Christ.
Yep.
So we thought
that was George's point.
Cannibalism theme. Yeah,
he goes, man eats the body of Jesus every Sunday. Yeah. He goes, it's not, what I'm talking about isn't, hoo-ha fucking crazy shit. Like this is mainstream stuff now. It's just, you're looking
and
at
Carlisle's character is from the Rosary is a Catholic. So, makes
F.W.
sense.
Calhoun, a servant of God, he calls himself. And I was like, oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it doesn't say which God, though.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to go with a 4. There's another, this was one of the better cannibalism films that I've seen. It's French.
I've heard of it. I've seen that poster.
Raw. Yeah, it's not fucking bad. It's not bad.
I beg to differ. I really beg to differ.
On Tubi.
I really don't like that film.
Well, somebody always doesn't like something. That's just the way it is. So I like it. I own it. And I'm good with it. I maybe at some point we'll get around to talking about it. I think it is on like Tubi or something like that. I don't want to get into some heavy cannibalism theme, but maybe we'll 6 months or something.
We'll do it in November for Thanksgiving.
That'll be it. Yeah.
It's not Green Inferno, man, which is just Eli Roth straight up torture porn.
Yeah, I'm not doing that shit. So all right, Bill, anything you got to plug?
Nothing to plug. Thank you.
All right. Eric.
YouTube channel, Hey Internet, Eric here. Still going through the Rocky franchise. I just uploaded a video on the director's cut for Rocky 4, Rocky versus Drago. It's just me explaining the differences, what I liked and didn't like. And then I'll slowly be going through those films all the way to Creed 3. And then my theme for the entire year on YouTube is movies I've never seen. Now, I could have seen clips of it. Like, I've never seen Blues Brothers from beginning to end.
What?
But I've probably seen the whole movie, catching it on channels and stuff like that. So that, The Godfather, movies you'd be surprised that someone like me hasn't seen like that. And I'm continuing my interview series this Saturday. As of this recording, I'm a big wrestling fan. Mike, I'm into the deathmatch stuff. I'm actually just I'm interviewing deathmatch wrestler Madman Pondo, who's been doing this since the late 90s. We're going to be talking about how he started in arenas that had like maybe an eighth full to going and traveling the world, doing it in front of full out, sold out stadiums in like Tokyo, Japan. But we're also going to talk horror movies because, you know, me and him talk horror movies because he's fucking sick and tired of talking about wrestling, you know, like whenever every wrestler is interviewed. But we're also going to talk about celebrities he's met, like, you know, hanging out with Marilyn Manson and Billy Corrigan and stuff like that, being a character in video games, being in movies. So that'll be this Saturday at 9 p.m. Eastern time on my channel.
All right. Well, that sounds cool. I'm glad that these interviews, I'm glad that you're enjoying them.
I've said it before, like, you know me, this is my way out. Like, I'm a huge introvert, so this is my way. I'm talking to my friends and stuff like that, and the fact that I'm kind of getting kicked in the ass, reaching out to people that I don't know, you know what I mean? And it's a lot of fun, and it's kind of helping me get out of my comfort zone. So I've really been enjoying doing them.
Good for you, man. Good for you.
Thank you.
Julia, what do you got for us?
Well, nothing much really. My YouTube channel is on hiatus. I'm thinking about a lot of things, what I might do or what I might not do, but it's on hiatus for now. But if you are interested in listening to me read you some ghost and horror stories, my back catalogue is enormous. There's over 500 videos on there. And if you want to go over to LibriVox, there's even more on that.
Okay. Very cool.
know,
Very cool. Well,
once again, though, I'd like to plug 30 Coins. Go see 30 Coins. If you haven't seen it, go see it. It's fabulous.
30 Coins is a Max original series. It is Spanish language, set over in Spain. And it has got some fantastic storytelling, really original, some Lovecraftian monsters.
Oh, incredible special effects.
Yeah.
So good.
It's good stuff. They just finished the second season and decided in the second season to bring in Paul Giamatti as kind of the big bad, which was interesting. It was interesting. If I did have a complaint, is that there wasn't enough Paul Giamatti about the second season. So I'm not going to say anything because Julia didn't get a chance to get into it yet. She's got a Blu-ray on the way. So all right,
all the way from China.
That's usually where they come from.
Mm-hmm.
All right, for me, we will be back next week. Cold and Scary as Fuck returns with the ignominious return of Rod Jean Charles, who will be back with us next week to talk about Stephen King's Misery.
Yes, I'll be there.
Which is a movie I've actually only seen once.
Oh, wow.
I've only seen it once, just never got around. I saw it, I think, in the theaters, or maybe when I was, I don't know. I saw it when it first came out.
Oh, wow.
And never seen it since. Never wanted to. It's not a particularly happy movie. It doesn't particularly have a happy ending. You know, it's a rough and uncomfortable movie. But it's extremely well done.
Very good.
Oh, yeah. And you've got fantastic performances from James Caan and, of course, Kathy Bates. It's almost.
It reminds me a lot of Whatever Happened to Baby Jane.
I can see that.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, I could see that easily. So we will be covering that next week. We will also have. I'm sure there'll be some relevant content coming out. I just put out a video about The Exorcist Deceiver. They're actually they made that flop movie Believer, which seems to have flopped in the box office. They were charging. Somehow they got the idea that they were going to pull it from the theaters and charge people $30 for video on demand for Halloween. Like no one was going to pay $30 to watch that.
Nope.
So it makes sense. Yeah, and David Gordon Green, the director, has been removed from the director's chair for the next movie. And it's actually been removed from their release schedule for 2025.
Yep.
So with any luck, it will just go away and fade into obscurity.
I don't think it will.
They paid $400 million for the rights.
That's why.
From Warner Brothers. So they have to do something.
Yeah.
How do you pay that much money for rights to something and then fuck it up as bad as they did?
How do you do it? You hire the guy that did 3 Halloween movies. That's wow.
Every time. Every time. All right. On another note related, though, I have begun a second YouTube channel, which is called the Shikon channel. So you will find me YouTube at Shikon, Shikon channel. And I am going to be talking about one thing and one thing only on that channel. Shikon in Japanese translates to Spirit of the Samurai. So I am going to be creating pre-recorded reviews of classic Japanese samurai films, which are some of my favorite films in terms of cinema. They're not just those run, shaw action black belt theater films. These are superior pieces of storytelling that do not focus on action. Yeah, Kagemusha. We'll get into some Kurosawa, but I should have the first video up by this weekend, and I'm going to be working on Masaki Kobayashi's Samurai Rebellion, which is a lesser-known film starring the great Toshiro Mifune. I'm watching it right now, and it is just as good as the last time I saw it, maybe 10 years ago. I have a list. I just kicked off a list, probably of 50 movies that I have in my possession just to start off with.
Oh, nice.
So this will be, I repurchased the Adobe license so I can start, making professional videos. And I'm really looking forward to getting into that. American Werewolf is fun. But, sometimes it's just all over the place, and I'm fine with that because, I'm with you guys doing it. One time we're talking about action movies. Next time we're talking about scary movies. One time we're talking about sci-fi. But this will be one thing and one thing only. And so if you get a chance, go check it out. Check out the channel. Give it a sub. And the first video should be out this weekend. So I'm looking forward to that.
Nice.
All right. My thanks to Chef Boyar Bill. My thanks to Eric from Internet Eric here, and my thanks to Morgan Scorpion for stopping in. Hold on a second. Ginger Ninja said he just picked up Rand not too long ago. That is one of the greatest. That is one of the greatest films of all time. Yeah. You could talk about Kurosawa indefinitely, but Kobayashi is. I think someone once called him the Fellini of Japanese film. So, I mean, it's serious fucking cinema that this guy's doing. All right, my thanks to everybody here. We will see you next week for Stephen King's Misery. It looks like a late show because Rod's going to be on. Take care, everybody, and we will see you all in the next stream. All right, take care.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.